Welcome to the SGV Master Key, a show where you will hear personal stories of triumph over failures and how others successfully navigated the unique landscape that is the San Gabriel Valley. What makes us different? Well, just like you, we have chosen the San Gabriel Valley for our home or businesses or both. We believe it is the people and small businesses that make this community great, and we love to share their stories with you. We always encourage your questions and feedback, and you can find all of our contact information at sgvmasterkey.com. Here are the hosts for the show, Russell Mono and Scott Warmoth.
All right, we're back with another episode. Scott, we were just talking earlier about going to a business and feeling that they remember you and they refer to you by name and how wonderful that is.
You feel welcome, you feel part of a family. I don't understand why more businesses don't do that. There is a lot of complaint about bad service, bad customer service, and why they don't see that good service is a way to build business.
Sure. I love that. And I feel like my business is important to them, and you can't fake that.
No, it's genuine. And I think what you have described to me is this feeling you get when you go into the store that our guest runs. And
absolutely.
This is, fascinating because I've never been to the store, and I'm anxious to find out about it.
Yeah. The one thing that sticks out in my mind about our guest and their market is the familiarity, the referring to their customers by name, and I always feel very welcome there. And today we have Christian Esteban. Welcome to the show.
What's up, guys? Scott, Russell, how are you? Thank you for having CHAASTE Market here today.
Yeah, so CHAASTE Market is, why don't you explain what that is?
So CHAASTE Market, where do I begin? All the credit goes to my mom. CHAASTE Market, my mom's very religious. We're Filipino American. And if you guys don't know, the Philippines was colonized by the Spanish for over 400 years. And so most of us are Catholic. We have all of us have like Spanish last names. So like my cousins, they look very Asian. My cousin's last name is Fernandez. So they're like, is this guy Hispanic or Asian? You could look like my cousin. So it's kind of funny. So the reason why I mentioned that is CHAASTE, the name CHAASTE is an acronym of all our names, our family name. So CH is me, Christian. A is my brother Abraham. Art is my father. Susan is my mom. Torres is her maiden name. And Esteban, which is also known as Steve, is our last name. So my mom wanted CHAASTE because it symbolized who she was. Most Filipinos are very religious, so chastity, purity, and she wanted the store to be recognized as on the more spiritual level, and kind of like what you guys mentioned earlier. It's more of like how we treat others and our relationship with the customers, word of mouth.
Where is your store?
So our store is located in the heart of Pasadena, probably central Pasadena, between Allen and Corson. We've been there for 33 years this year, going on our 34th year actually.
Is that right near PCC? Are you close?
Yeah, just north of that. So where Allen is a PCC, make a left up Allen, right before the freeway. We're right there.
Okay. And so what kind of market is it? You've described it as you're Filipino Americans.
Yes, sir.
Does it feature Filipino?
Oh yeah. So
fair then?
It's your only taste of the Philippines in Pasadena. We're the only Filipino store in Pasadena for the past 33 years, or going on 34. There are a few other stores that tried, but Pasadena is a different crowd. It's a big city. I think we're 11 miles long. Not many Filipinos when my mom started the store. So our original sign said Oriental on top. Yeah,
that's going back in time.
Yeah, it's an Oriental on top. So we changed that now, and then it has like our Filipino flag and everything like that. Filipino American flag. Actually, it's this right here. The purpose of this image right here is this is the Filipino sun, and this is the American flag in the middle. Just symbolizing, and we're family, of course, symbolizing that we're Filipino American. I mean, I was born and raised here in Pasadena, born at Huntington Hospital. So I'm a native boy, and I'm proud of being a native boy at Pasadena. But when Manny Pacquiao, the famous boxer, was on fire, and I love him. I'm a big fan of him. So many Americans are fans of him. But at my family party, I have a lot of Caucasian friends because I just grew up with them. I went to private school all my life, and you see a lot of Irish boys there. I went to Assumption for my elementary school, then went out to St. Francis. And some of my guy friends at the party, all my cousins and family friends, they're waving the Filipino flag around everywhere. And it's cool. It didn't really bother me. And some of my friends were like, hey, yo, are your family, were they born here or born in the Philippines? I said, no, they're born here. They're like, how come they don't like wave around like the American flag too? I said, well, I never really thought about it,
Yeah.
I said, I don't know. I think they're just proud because it's Manny Pacquiao. They're like, yeah, but he's from the Philippines. You guys are born here, so you're American first. And I said, well, you know what? I never thought about it that way.
Well, that's a whole complicated story
That
too, isn't it?
That is complicated. It's more like
how
what?
you see yourself and
Yeah, and I didn't really know how to explain it to my buddies because it was kind of weird growing up because I was the only Asian boy with my friends. So it didn't really bother me until because my cousins grew up in Igorot and Cerritos. They're like predominantly Asian there, or Filipino for that matter. And when I hung out with them, they're all Filipino. So it was kind of like, whoa. So that's kind of what the store symbolized. The Chaste Market was uniting all cultures together. So like our slogan in the store is chaste, keeping culture alive. Or I like to tell people we're just trying to keep culture alive, period. It doesn't matter where you're from or what it is. Food is like the universal language with everybody. And if you guys know Filipinos, I mean, they're all over the hospitals, and the Filipinos are known for their hospitality. We just always give. And I mean, when Russell first came to the store, he was really nice, cool dude. And I'm just like what he said, a first name basis. We try to get to know your name. And actually, I wear these Vibram shoes because of him. Yeah, I wear these because of him.
5-finger shoes.
Yeah. Remember that day? I was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I asked you about it, and I'm like, why is this guy always wearing those things? And you told me you're really smart, Russell. So you told me the scientific explanation for it. I kind of forgot, so I started just doing my own research on it. I said, oh, that's to control your mobility of your ankles and your heels. And he's actually a trainer, so. I actually had a really bad health problem I was overpronated, and I didn't know. So I'm a big time sports enthusiast. I did triathlons and stuff like that, but I didn't know I was overpronated. I'm like, I can't believe I didn't know that. I thought I was like Superman. I could just run, and then my body just broke down. I'm 37, so 3 years ago, it was like a knife just stuck into my hip, And then I went to see my buddy, a good buddy of mine in high school. He's a podiatrist now. He's like, bro, you have messed up feet, man. It's like you're overpronated. I'm like, what's that? He was like, you walk like a duck. I was like, oh.
What I know about Russell is that he loves to get into feet.
Oh, it's important.
And yes, it is.
I didn't know how important feet was. And then he told me, he said, you need to control the mobility of your feet. I said, how do I do that? What shoes do I buy? He goes, no, you need to walk barefooted, bro. I'm like, how am I going to do that? And I thought of him. I was like, oh, that's what Russell was wearing. And then now I have this is my 4th pair already, Russell.
Awesome.
I bought a bunch of them.
You wear them everywhere you go.
Everywhere I go.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
How about the rest of your family?
My baby brother does. Yeah. Gabriel, the one who's not on the name of the store.
Is that a sore spot for him?
No, he's cool about it. He's the baby. He knows he gets everything. Yeah, he's I was 4 years old when my mom started the store. And so the store is like my second home.
So you're just a very close family, it sounds like.
Yes, we're a very close family.
You're all involved in running the store?
Yeah.
So it's
we never
real
saw it
family.
that way because we're always like that. I mean, the way my buddies describing it in high school, my Caucasian friends, they said, you guys are like the families that used to migrate from Europe in the 30s that came to America, like the Italians, and the boroughs, because they just kept it in the family, And right. I never thought about that, but if you know Filipinos, they're very, very family oriented, just like the Latinos, They're just we take care of our parents. We sometimes don't leave the house till like in our 20s, you know,
Yeah.
sometimes.
So you're the oldest of 3 brothers,
Yeah.
Christian, Abraham, and Gabriel. And you were born here, so your brothers were born here. When did your parents come to America?
Oh, there's a long history behind that and why we're located in Pasadena, if I could share that briefly. CHAASTE Market, we were actually supposed to be established in Eagle Rock because that's where the influx of Filipinos were moving from, Filipino town. My mom knew probably the most famous one. Okay, I take that back. They're going to get upset with me. One of the most famous markets / turo restaurants like mine, like ours, is called Arco in Glendale.
Oh, yes, I've been there.
Yeah, that's my tita Susie and the rest of them. They're OG. They're like, you know, they're the original. Everybody knows who they are. And my mom is friends with them. And they said, Susan, start your store in Eagle Rock. Don't open it in Pasadena because that's like a death sentence demographically, you know? I mean, as far as minority wise, it's only the Latinos who dominate Pasadena during that time. And it's mostly Caucasian and they're not probably familiar with Filipino food. But my dad, here's where the story gets interesting. My dad was, according to my family, was one of the first Filipinos in Pasadena. My grandfather was a POW, received a Purple Heart in World War II from the Bataan March, or the Bataan March. And that's how he got his visa to come here. But however, they didn't, I don't know what the complication was before, didn't give his family a visa. So
Wow.
he came here like in 49, I believe.
He was in the U.S. Army?
He started as a U.S. Scout. I think that's the same thing. I'm not really familiar with how the services work.
I don't really. I never heard of that.
So, well, in World War II, they recruited him, and he was an agriculturalist. He was a farmer. He's Ilocano, just like most of everyone in Hawaii. They're like the guys from the north, a little bit of the darker shade guys. So, my grandfather knew the terrain very well because that's where they were. The Bataan March is like no more than an hour from where he lived, and a lot of the Japanese soldiers weren't very nice back then. But so the American soldiers, they're not accustomed to the land. It was too hot for them. They're dehydrated. They didn't know what to eat. You know, the Filipinos, of course, they lived there very long. They knew like what grass to eat, what hay. So my grandfather, being an agriculturalist, along the way during the death march, wherever they're going, he knew what to grab from the side and what grass to eat. Just eat grass, you know. And in his battalion or in his group, he saved a lot of lives because a lot of the Americans had families back at home and they wanted to survive. They said, and my grandfather would say, "Here, you eat this grass." And they're like, "What grass?" Like, you know, the only thing in your mind, if it's a war, like I need to get back home to my wife and my kids. So they would eat it. And it turns out like it was a blessing in disguise. So they're like, "Hey, that's the guy." Like, you know, when the Americans and MacArthur came back and the Japanese left, they said, "Hey, who helped you guys?" He said, "Oh, that little Filipino guy." Because my grandfather was short. He was like 5'4". He's like, everyone's like your height, like 6'2" or something, like 6 foot. So they're like, "Hey, that guy right there." And that's when like he had the opportunity to come here. So he left, I think in 49 or 50, I forgot. And he left his family, my dad and my aunties, and he worked very hard here in I think he went to Delano first. I think that's the way the story went. He went to Delano first, and then he came here. So, you know the Allstate right next to CHAASTE Market? Mm-hmm. It's owned by Paul Ordinario. Paul Ordinario was the first Filipino to be born in Pasadena. So his father was friends with my grandfather. So they're called the Manongs. Manongs is like kind of like uncles. They're like the original Filipinos in Pasadena.
Wow.
Yeah, so I give a lot of credit to those guys because my generation and my nephew's generation, I'm 37, so all the kids, they kind of forgot the respect. They don't remember how hard the story was to like break the color barrier for Asians or any minority, because we're like dark looking Asians, so they didn't really know what was going on, you know? So, I mean, my friends ever had like funny jokes with me growing up, but they didn't really mean it, you know? And I didn't really bother me till like I started going to college actually. And when I got to college, I joined the Filipino club because I didn't have a lot of Filipino friends in high school. I did kind of like 8 or 10, but in college I said I'm joining the Filipino club, and then when I did, I was like, oh man, that's not nice what my friends were saying, but they're just kidding. I know they don't mean it. So.
Well, you're talking about not really recognizing what the first generation went through.
Yes, exactly.
The difficulties.
So
the prejudices, as you say, but also just having to work hard and be without their family, which was back home, right? In another country.
That's the biggest thing. My dad and my aunties had I think as more of mental, psychological effect on them, because my grandmother who took care of them, she died early when I was like 3, and when when they came here, my dad was just like wanted to repair that relationship that he lost with his dad growing up. So it's kind of weird. Like they didn't really talk, I would hang out with my grandfather. I'm the grandson that asks a lot of questions. I'm like annoying. So I'm like, Grandpa, what'd you do here? What are you there? And he's like really quiet, but he would tell me sometimes like stories of what he's seen in the war and when he came here. I ask a lot about the prejudice. And what I love about his generation, when you talk about prejudice, a lot of his generation, they know it, but they're not very bitter about it. It's more like the younger generation is. Like, I mean, that's from my experience. Just like watching Paul, like next door, and my grandfather. They know about it. They'll tell you certain stories, but they don't go out preaching like a lot of my other friends do. I have a lot of African American friends because I played in the rec system here. I went to private school, but I played in like YMCA. I played in Boys and Girls Club, and they're mostly minority there. And that's when I learned the sensitivity of like race. And but you definitely see it. Like if you play in the West Side back in the 90s, West Side Pasadena, it's a rough area, and you feel the separation and segregation sometimes with color. So that's what like CHAASTE Market was about. Like we're open and welcome to everybody. Like if you come to the store, I really don't care if you like look pink. You look pink, green, it don't matter to me. I'm like, I'm here to show you some love, bro. If you want some food, we'll feed you. And my mom, what I learned about from my mom, she's the most wonderful woman on the planet. And I think every son would say that. But I learned how to, like I always tell everyone this, they say, how do you describe your mom? She turns every enemy to a friend. And I seen it growing up. I was like 4 years old, always in the store. I hang out at the store. I sleep on the rice bags. And my mom, he would have some crazy, like, angry customers. Like, I don't know what they're going through in life, but my mom, she doesn't fight back. But when she does, it's like righteous anger. I don't know, like in the Bible, because we're very religious. She fights back at the right time. She doesn't just blow up back right away and say, hey, you raised your voice at me, I'm going to raise my voice back at you. That's not my mom. My mom will give you a lot of love and keep on giving you love. And when the guy steps over their boundary, or a woman, she'll say, hey, you know what? You need to stop that, And then if for some reason it never failed, when my mom did that, they were so kind to her. They're like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get upset. Like if you guys meet my mom, you'll love her. She'll probably give you free food. That's why my auntie who retired, whenever my mom's there, she's like, stay in the back. She's going to give all the food away. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because my first thought was, well, it's good business to be polite and warm and remember names, but it sounds like it's not that it's good business that you're doing it for. It's not for that reason. It's because this is real, genuine concern and care about other people. Yeah. And that's something quite different. And not everybody has that character or quality.
Sure.
Yeah, well, just like you guys. You guys are just giving back. And I didn't know Russell and you, Scott, were involved in a podcast and reaching out to others. And I'm like, whoa. Who would ever thought, And then, I mean, this is a great message. This is a perfect time for people to start sending the message out because everybody's at home and everything's changing. Like this generation is, I mean, I'm talking like I'm old, but like I grew up with going to the warehouse buying cassette tapes, And then I think you, Scott, probably bought records, right? Vinyl records, right?
And 8-track tapes.
8-track, yeah. I mean, and now we're like Skyping or on our phone with people across the world.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane,
Yeah.
you know? So like the podcast is like the next wave. This is the new future.
Yeah, for sure. So you were born here in Pasadena and you grew up and went to school in Pasadena.
Mm-hmm.
And what did you do after high school?
High school, so yeah, it gets really interesting. Myself, I'll speak on the behalf of the store too. After high school, I really wanted to go to USC. That was, every Pasadena homegrown wants to go there. I didn't get accepted to USC, so I ended up going to my safety school, which was CSUN, and I love the Matador so much. I went to CSUN, and my second year, my mom and dad weren't doing too well in their marriage. Actually really bad. Sorry, Mom, if you watch this. But it's the truth. And then my mom, we have a lot of property back in the Philippines. We have a mango farm. We have a house over there. I mean, we own some things out there in the Philippines. And my mom said, I'm going to go home and for a little bit, if you want to come with me. I'm not going to leave my mom. And my dad's a cool dad. He's very nice, very strict. But I had a feeling my dad was going to make me work. I'm a little spoiled back in the day. I mean, I'm not spoiled as in I will work for the store because my mom loved the store. Whatever my mom loved, I loved, you know? So she worked hard. She stayed up late nights. I don't even remember her sleeping. So I did what she did in the store. So I follow where she goes. And she gave me the opportunity. She said, do you want to study in the Philippines? So if you guys don't know, the medium of education in the Philippines is English. And then the medium of business is English in the Philippines. So it's not really hard to adapt if you go to the Philippines. It's like I've been to Thailand and I can't understand anything when I come out of Thailand, you know? Like there's no English signs or anything like that. I mean, you see a few. But in the Philippines, it's like you're in America, but a third world country. Like everything's in English, you know? And majority of people understand you there. So I already knew that because I visited the country a few times before that. The history behind that was I decided to go to the Philippines, and that's where everything changed. I went to the Philippines. I graduated from University of Baguio. And my second year in Baguio, I was walking to the canteen. That's like the cafeteria area. And at the time, they had a female president by the name of Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. They call her GMA. Someone approached me and said, hey, we work for GMA. We'd like to interview you for a dating show. I thought I was like, this must be a joke, right? It's kind of like Russell coming up to me and saying we want to go podcast, but I didn't really know what that was before. And it's like me not understanding what podcasts were, you know, like, but I know it because like, this is like the new wave. But before in the Philippines, I'm like, what's GMA? Come on, man. So I just started laughing. I was with my friends and I didn't know what it was. I did the interview just like this and it blew up. And then they actually came to the house. It was a dating show. It was a real dating show. And there's only 2 channels in the Philippines. It's called GMA and ABS-CBN, which is now off air because the president right now is a very strict president. I could say more, but I'm not. So he's a very strict president and he kicked them offline. They're just completely out. So it's only my mother network that's still there. And TV5, but they're like in between because they're more like sports and news. But so I got interviewed for this dating show and then I lost. And it turns out that show became like, they kept on repeating it because it got high ratings. And then everybody, the winner of the show was my boy Johnny Johnson. His last name is Johnson, but he's Filipino. Totally looks Asian. But I was like, "Where'd you get your last name?" He goes, "I decided to change it because my dad loved Magic Johnson." I'm like, "What? Who does that, dude?" But anyway, I don't know, but he did it, and no one spoke to him or went after him. But the show kept on rating, and then people started calling me, "You're the extra boy." Because that's the name of the show, Extra. And I was like, oh, cool. Yeah, whatever.
So you were recognized and famous?
I wasn't famous yet. So I was like, oh, cool. Yeah, Extra. It's kind of nice to like people know you. And it was God's will because our store is based on Christ. Everything is Christ centered. And I was like, wow, Jesus, that's cool. You know, and my goal in the Philippines was, of course, to finish school, but I wanted to work with a lot of nonprofit organizations to help the community because I always felt passionate growing up. I felt different growing up because I grew up with a lot of Caucasians. And I always felt like if my mom if the Philippines was good to my parents, then they would never have to come here. We could have just stayed there, just like a lot of my Japanese friends. I have a lot of Japanese American friends. They just want to leave. But a lot of them, they have fun in Japan too. The Philippines, it's not fun if you're not making money. It's hard, but the beaches are beautiful, the best in the world. So what happened was that show became big. I started getting known as Extra Extra. And then a year passed, and then a show called Starstruck came about. That was like it's equivalent to like American Idol here. And I didn't know what it was. I thought it was just like a random show. And they said, the executive producer personally called me and said, "Hey, we saw you. You're the Extra Extra boy. How old are you?" I told them my age. And then they said, "Would you like to audition? But we can't guarantee you anything. But we like how you were on TV." I said, "Sure." He said, "What's your talent?" I'm like, I don't have much talents, but I like club dancing. So I club dance, whatever. Fast forward, I auditioned. That show turned out to being the first reality television show ever in the Philippines. And it became like the K-pop movement there. It was like the biggest thing on the planet in the Philippines.
Wow.
It's massive. You say Starstruck to anybody, batch one, my batch. Until this day, my friends are superstars. Like, do you guys know Miss World 2012? She's part of my group too. Like Miss World, like Megan Young. If you just if I name drop a few of the people I came in with, they're still famous there right now. It was just a blessing. And that's how like my career I ended up staying there for a long time.
Well, you say career. So what was your career exactly?
I graduated in communications and I started working in public affairs. So kind of doing like what you guys are doing. I'll be like you setting it up. That's why I knew how to hold the stuff and set up things. So I did that a little bit, segment producing, and then I got picked up as a host. But before that, it was the talent search show. But after that show, it was phenomenal. Like,
you were the host of Starstruck?
No, I was
different show.
No, Starstruck. I was a candidate. I was like one of the talents, and it was 14, and they eliminated each one. Philippines never seen it before, so it was really big at the time.
But that show led to you becoming a host of another show.
Yes,
a different
so
type of show.
Yeah, like multiple shows. Yeah, I became a host in the Philippines.
Okay, so you were famous. You were well known.
I was
wow.
at one point.
Okay.
Yeah. With the Filipino community, like if I go back home, I mean, people won't be like, like before, but they know who I am. Like if I go to Starbucks and I meant that in the most humble way, whoever's watching. Like if I go to Starbucks and I always joke around, what's your name? You know how people give alias names. I'm like, Billy. They'll be like, India. That means no. Like, your name's Christian. I'm like, oh, they still remember me. That's so nice. Because that's almost like 20 years ago already, 15. But the blessing is my group was very special because a lot of, probably out of 14, 8 to 9 are still active. And they're leads, actually, like lead actress. And my best friend, she's very, 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 very famous still right now. So it's a blessing, and we had this store too at the same time. So
who knew, right? Like, so when this releases and is aired in the Philippines, then it's going to blow up.
Yeah.
Oh, I hope. I mean, people still care about me, but yeah. So, I mean, if I bring my friends along, maybe it would, but I go back and forth a lot because my cousin from here, from Eagle Rock, it turns out he became a superstar in basketball there. I mean, he was a superstar here. For me, he's the first Jeremy Lin. His name's Alex Cabagnot. You could look him up. He was the pride of Eagle Rock, first team All-City in Los Angeles, played with Tyson Chandler at the time. And no one ever seen an Asian guy that good in basketball. For me, he was the first Jeremy Lin. Like, he's only 6'1", but with a 6'4" wingspan. And everybody was looking at him. But if you guys don't know how D1 prospects work, a lot of the boosters are involved, And at that time in 98, 99, 2000, it's unheard of to see an Asian baller.
Sure.
That good. But he was dropping 30 points a game in Los Angeles. That's why everyone was like, who is this guy?
Well, what did he do? Go back and play in the Philippines then?
So no one wanted to recruit him to the schools that he wanted to go to. And Hawaii Hilo picked him up. That's a D2 school. And he ended up winning a national championship with them with Hawaii Hilo, and they said, "Who is this guy? How come he's not playing in a D1 school?"
Right.
And so he got offered. Philippines saw who he was. They already knew he was already on the radar before, but he got offers to Europe, and then he ended up playing in the Philippines. And then now the rest is history. He's playing right now, actually, as we speak, and he's in a game.
Where is he playing right now?
He plays. Have you guys heard of the famous beer, San Miguel beer?
Right. Yeah.
He's like one of the faces for San Miguel beer. Oh. So yeah, and he's a 9-time champion, Philippine basketball team, all-star, MVP, blah 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 blah. His list goes on and on. So it's kind of cool when I go back home. They don't know we're related. And when he won his first championship and went on a streak in 2015, he brought me back home because I was a little bitter the way I left. I bumped heads a lot in the Philippines. I guess that's my American side. Because in the Philippines, it's like a lot of things there. It's so sad because a lot of the people, like when I got my own show there, it was a public affairs show. It's called Serbisyong Totoo. That means like service to the people. And I got to go. My show was a travel show. I in the Philippines, there's over 7,000 islands. And when you get off the airport, it says, "Wow, Philippines." And they have like these destination spots. My job was to tour people, like the masses through my show, where to go. So my job was to travel. And it was beautiful. I saw the beauty of the Philippines. It made me love it. And what broke my heart was the country shouldn't be suffering the way they are. It's the government, and they're going to not like me for saying this, but it's the media also what makes it the way it is. And I said, we shouldn't be like that. You should be putting down our community. I felt like it was propaganda, and I spoke out, and I hung out with a lot of people who was involved in propaganda in the Philippines too, like a lot of my producers.
Oh, but they didn't like hearing that.
Oh no,
the
they
Philippines.
did not. It's like, right, especially that I'm not born there. They liked me until that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
You probably couldn't get away with that now, I bet, right?
you guys know the president, right? Duterte? Oh no, I'll probably disappear on this podcast. If you heard this, I'll probably disappear.
So have you gone back recently?
No. I was supposed to go back in July. My cousin asked me if I want to go home. He said, "Oh, stay with me," and I love staying with him because he's like Steve Nash over there, So it's really nice. I get a really nice life there.
Yeah.
But I couldn't. I have the store. I just got married, guys. So
congratulations!
Thank you. Yeah. I'm wearing these funny looking rubber rings because I almost lost my ring already, like 2 times, and my wife was like, "No, I need to get you that."
Is she local?
Here's another funny story about that. So my wife is Caucasian. Here's the funny thing why I say it's funny. She was born and raised in the Philippines. So it's an awkward story. I'm born and raised here and I'm Filipino. She's born and raised in the Philippines and she's white. So it's kind of like, whoa.
You met here or in the Philippines?
I met her in the store. She could speak Tagalog. And then kind of like, whoa, that's off.
So you became famous in the Philippines, and how did you make your way back to the store?
I came back in 2006. No, sorry. I came back 2007 to finish my master's degree. So I have a master's degree in film. And I went back again in the Philippines in 2010 to work a little bit. It didn't work out the way I wanted to. I mean, you guys both know. You guys are successful in what you do. There's a lot of... I'm more level-headed now. I'm not as brash as I used to be, but... people didn't forget my attitude before of how I like to call it passion. Like what you guys are doing now, but you guys are neutral, but like I'm more passionate and like the way I think when I was younger. I mean, I was in my early 20s, and if you're bullying somebody, I'll stand up for that person right away. Because I was small, I grew up with tall guys, like both of you guys are taller than me. So I'm like, I don't like it when someone's being pushed around. That's like my ultimate pet peeve. So I guess they remember that, okay, if we bring this guy on with us, he might have that same attitude. It's just going to be trouble. So it was hard for me to find work because that carried my reputation, even though I had a lot of good friends that trusted me and they vouched for me. My best friend at the time when I came back in 2010, She's still famous now, very famous. But at that time, she was like Angelina Jolie in her peak. And one word from her, I'll get a job. And she did that for me. But it was very hard. They hired me, they did all this stuff, but they didn't give me a lot of work because, I don't know, they had their personal agenda. But they just did it to make her happy. So yeah, so that was a lot of weird beef. So to bring it back to like what you said, after 2011, my spiritual growth grew in the Philippines. Whenever I'm in trouble in my mind and I'm not at peace, I pray. My mom, that's the one thing that why the store is still alive until this day. The store is still lasting because of prayer. That's all it is. It's all prayer. And if people don't believe in prayer, you should see the way the store looked before we took over. It's like a real Filipino store in the Philippines. It has like duct tape taped to the ground and random. It just looks like, man, this is real ethnic over here. You know, like when you see it, not to put my store down, but like if you've been in the Philippines, it's not something you would see at Whole Foods, Trader Joe's. You know, this is like Trader Joe's looks like it's trying to be tropical, but you're like in America still. Philippines, like, oh, you go to my store, you can be like, okay, this is Filipino. He has like a fan that looks like it was 1986. The freezers are still 1986. So you really feel like the vibe in the store. So I came back in 2012 because that's when my mom was having problems with my dad and we didn't know he had dementia yet. And my mom asked me to come home and I said, I'm not finished here yet. So I did a lot of prayer, meditation, and then God gave me a word through a friend. He uses instruments. And one day a buddy of mine, I'm Catholic, but he's a Christian, both same thing, but they just pray different. He invited me to his church and I went. And the pastor said something like, "Oh, hey, this message is for everyone out here, but it's for someone in particular, and you'll know it when you hear me." You know, and I was like, "Okay, cool." And I was praying these exact words. I was saying, "Jesus, let me know if I should stay or I should go." And then so like they're Protestant, so they're like, you know, they're like worshiping, singing. I was already crying when I was singing, and then he said, "This message is for you if you know it," and he said, "Jesus is telling me to tell you to just go." And I just broke down even more. I was like, oh, like I got like filled with the Holy Spirit. Like I got like slayed, you know? And I said, I didn't want to go because I didn't think I accomplished what I needed to there. And I had to. So I went, and then that's where the journey started back with the store again. And my mom said, "Hey, I'm going to close the store." And I said, "Close the store?" But by this time, I'm already, you know, I'm very, very prideful of the Philippines, even though I didn't grow up with a lot of Filipinos. I traveled to almost like every island over there in the Philippines, not every island, but a lot of the inhabited islands. I'm very Filipino pride at this time. And so I said, we need to keep this culture going. So then I had to say, okay, I can't do this by myself. I have to recruit my brothers. My brother, the middle brother, he's the smartest intellectual out of all of us. He graduated in IT programming. He was a systems operating manager for Hewlett Packard at the time. And he likes his comfortable office work, just like my dad. My dad worked at JPL NASA. So he's kind of like my dad. Like, I want to chill here, do my thing, and dip out. I'm like my mom, like, oh, let's try to do everything, save the world type of guy, you know, like help this person if he doesn't have food. Like if a homeless guy goes to the store, it's just like, I have to give him food. That's just the way it works. Until my mom says, they're abusing us, then you stop, you know. But if someone comes in and I don't know you and you're homeless, it's just automatic in me to give it because my mom raised us that way. So I recruited that brother, and then the middle brother, he finished in culinary, and he was working like for a hotel, and he said like a 5-star hotel in the Philippines, and I got him to come over, and that's when we started taking over the store again. Oh, but the store took a lot of work it was a lot of work to be done. You know, there was a lot of issues with the finances. Number one, the suppliers my mom hired family, but there was a lot of internal issues. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I should talk about it because that's like, I buried that in the past already. But if you ever work with family, not everything is perfect. And it hurts even more because they're family.
Sure.
So we had to fix a lot of things, my brother and I. But through the grace of God, everything is working well. We had our 31st year anniversary. Mayor Terry Tornick. So I'm pro Mayor Terry. I'm sorry if you guys are Gordo, but pro. Are you guys Gordo, by the way?
No, we have no.
No.
We're apolitical.
Good. But I rep Mayor Terry because he's such a good man, and I'm sure Gordo is a nice guy, but Mayor Terry just so happened to visit the store a lot. So I'm going with who visits us and shows us personal love.
Sure.
Yeah.
We asked you to bring something today.
Yeah.
Can you share this with us?
Sure. So this right here, guys, is a rosary. There's a history behind this rosary, but if you guys don't know, I have my best friend says a very colorful life. I also went into the seminary at one point, and before I was discerning. If I should go or should not, because I didn't want to go into the seminary. But when God calls you, or if you guys have a calling to anything, most of the time you don't want to do it, you know. And
But what age did you go in?
oh, it's recently, 31. Yeah, it was like 5 years ago. So we took over the store. The store started getting back on its feet, and that's when I started getting the calling after the second year, after our anniversary. Yeah. And when I went in, I have a lot of student loans. So I finished the first year, and then they asked me to go home. They said, take care of your loans, but we're open to have you still. But then I met Kayla. I met my wife. So this right here symbolizes the store because my mom is very faith-bound. We're very Christ-like. And the rosary symbolizes Jesus for me. And I believe supernaturally it has a lot of power. I pray it. A lot of people try to educate me about being Christian and Catholic, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to get into religion, but the rosary symbolizes my faith and who I am. It symbolizes Jesus for me because Jesus loved his mom. If you guys don't know the Bible a little bit, Jesus' first miracle was for his mom at the wedding at Cana. And I believe that shows a lot about a person, even though he's our God also. So yeah, so I carry this because my mom is the matriarch of the store. She is the store. And the rosary I kind of like see a parallel between my mom and, you know, just loving her. And she taught me this.
Sure.
Pray. So
It's interesting, huh, Scott? That's the second rosary and second week in a row that someone brought a rosary.
wow. Who brought the first one?
Joseph. Joseph is the owner of the gym that I work at.
Joseph.
Yeah.
Wow. That's my middle name. Wow.
And he also graduated from CSUN. Or you didn't graduate,
No,
did you?
yeah, I left
right.
second year.
Just another little tie-in, though.
Nice.
So you touched on briefly about your father having dementia. Is that something you feel comfortable sharing more about?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So I'd like to get more into that, but let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
The legal process can be intimidating. You don't know where to start and you're unsure of what to expect. The attorneys and staff at the law offices of Scott Warmoth have been serving the San Gabriel Valley for over 35 years, helping people just like you navigate through the legal process and ensuring you're treated fairly. You can find them at law888.com or call 626-282-6868. That's 626-282-6868.
Okay, we're back. So before the break, I had mentioned something that you shared briefly about your dad. So what's going on there?
Yeah, so for anyone listening or watching, if you have a person you're related to that's dementia or Alzheimer's, man, I feel for you. I mean, I think I was spoiled growing up, like in a private school all my life. So spoiled in a different way. But when I went to the Philippines, I was humbled, seeing a lot of hardship. But it's a different hardship when you're seeing your father, especially my dad, who is my dad is I like to say an alpha male. He served during Vietnam. He was in the Air Force. Then he worked in aerospace companies and retired at JPL. And he was a winner in the way I saw my dad. And it's hard seeing your dad not go from not making mistakes to believing he still doesn't make mistakes. and telling you, like, it's just very difficult because emotionally and mentally, it just doesn't make sense. And in the beginning, when I first came back from the Philippines, my dad is very hard, and I'm the eldest, so I argue more with him. And he would say something like the minor details, like he has a thing with keys. A lot of people with Alzheimer's or dementia have things with, like, they're stuck on something, you know? He's stuck on his keys, and he told me I misplaced him. I remember this the first time, and I said I didn't. This is before I knew he had dementia, and I just got mad. I was like, why are you telling me I misplaced it? I didn't touch it, Dad, blah, blah. And then I have a minor anger issue before. And so I fought back with him, and then it was kind of like a tussle for, like, back and forth for, like, a good year till I realized that I think my dad has a problem, because he keeps on telling me, like, he would leave the stove on, you know, and then, like, almost light the house on fire. Then he would leave his keys in the car engine and on, and in the middle of the night he would wake up and just, like, turn the car on and go back to sleep. I'm like, what's going on right now, you know? But now, I mean, that was 5 years ago, and I went to a few, like, my friend told me to go to a support group, so I just wanted to hang out with some people, and I got to hear them share their stories. But they don't like talking about their stories, so they gave me advice, and now it's very, we understand how my dad works now, you know, like, so anybody who has dementia or Alzheimer's, I'm very patient. So is
he with your mother still?
Yeah. So
is she taken over as a caregiver?
Kinda, yeah. Well, my auntie, we switch off. Here's the weirdest thing: if anybody's watching who's taking care of anyone with Alzheimer's or dementia, they said it's irreversible. I think it's not. I don't think that's true. Dr. Flicker, he was kind of shocked and amazed. We changed my dad's diet to fish. My wife is a holistic practitioner, so we changed my dad's diet to vegetables and fish. I kid you not, he could start recalling things. And he would have moments where he would just seem like he's back to himself. But however, if you start screaming at him, and he, for some reason, when he eats red meat, he'll just forget what he's supposed to do. It's like proven. Like, it's like, I don't even mess with that anymore. So I see red meat, I'm like, whoop, because he's a steak guy. My dad loves steak, and he bought a steak prime rib growing up. I love it. But when we have that, he's like, "Oh, Dad, what do you want for your birthday?" He's like, "Oh, I want some steak," and I'm like, "Oh, cool." Try to convince Dad about shrimp later. Yeah, that's how we try to bring shrimp or fish, you know. So yeah, speaking of my dad, he's a big factor to the store. He doesn't show us. He doesn't talk a lot as far as, like, building our emotion and wisdom, like my mom. But my dad showed us love by taking care of us financially. And he took me to all my games growing up because I was a travel ball player. I didn't realize that it's so hard to have a kid who plays in travel sports, you know?
Sure.
That was basketball.
Yeah, I played travel basketball growing up. Yeah.
We play basketball.
You guys play basketball?
Yeah.
Oh, we should hoop someday.
Against each other.
Oh, against each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about how, earlier, that's one of the times when I really got to know what Scott was made of, because it would take everything that I had to beat him.
Really? He's a trainer too. He's super athletic.
I haven't beaten him for 4 years.
No, he's beaten me. He's beaten me.
But how long have you guys been friends? For a long time, huh?
8 years. 9.
Yeah, about 8 years. Yeah, about 8 years.
Wow,
yeah,
that's a long time.
CHAASTE Family Market is one of my favorite places in the San Gabriel Valley, and I definitely recommend and introduce people to go there. But we're going to get to know some of your favorite places.
So, Christian, you grew up here in the San Gabriel Valley, and we have something on the show we call SGV3.
Cool.
We like to celebrate each guest's favorite places or experiences in the San Gabriel Valley. So, as Russell said, your store is one of his favorites. But what are your 3 favorite places or things to go do or see in the San Gabriel Valley?
That's gonna be hard because I'm a homegrown boy here, so there's so many. But if I had to choose, does it have to be food or anything?
Anything.
Anything. Well, of course, my store would be one. But okay, that's a joke. But I would say Huntington Gardens is a place to go visit. That's where my fiance and I, we have annual membership there, and that's where we find our peace and serenity with our mind.
Is that same as Huntington Library?
Yes.
Okay.
Same thing. And it's Huntington Library, but we just go to the gardens. And when my mind is just all these things that I'm thinking of, I just go there and chill. The Japanese gardens, the Chinese gardens, it's so big. It's beautiful there. So that's one. That's my number one to hang out. Food-wise, you guys probably already know Golden Deli.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you guys know Golden Deli. So the Golden Deli, or is it, I think, Vietnam, Saigon, I think, across the street from that one place.
Vietnam House.
Vietnam House, sorry. So that would be another one. And then lastly, the third, that's for food. Lastly would be my church.
Which
St.
is?
Therese in Alhambra. They're a Carmelite order. They've been there for over 100 years. It's borderline San Marino. And that's where I got married. Yeah. So
Where is that exactly?
it's off El Molino Road, Alhambra Road, sorry. And it's in borderline Alhambra, San Marino. It's called St. Therese Church. It's really beautiful there. It's really nice. Not too far from your billboards.
Oh, is there a billboard there? Yeah.
If you keep on going south down, yeah. Like we go to Arby's a lot though when I was a kid. Guess what they're putting in Arby's? Do you guys know what they're replacing Arby's with?
The one there on Las Tunas?
Yeah.
What are they?
We're replacing it with Jollibee.
Wow.
I mean, I'm sorry if I had to plug that, but that's a
You mean
plug.
that particular one is being closed down?
That's what, as far as like the Filipino community is like, yeah, you guys heard of SGV Eats, right?
Yes, I have.
SGV Eats is hot. I suggest you guys like look for all the people who are hot in there because we're one of them. So
That's a Facebook group.
yeah, they are like, that's a new 626 night market right
Yeah.
now. They're gonna blow up. You got to follow okay, I don't want to say this, but you got to follow where the Asians go because they know what's hot. You know? So the SGV Eats are saying like, yo, Jollibee's gonna be there, and Jollibee is one of my favorite places to go to too.
Nice.
Free plug.
So for our listeners, one of my favorite things to get at CHAASTE Family Market is the turon. And the original is great, but last time I went there, I saw this menu and it had 10 different flavors. And one of them was churon, which I'm going to try.
Oh, I should have brought you. I brought you guys the original. Yeah, so go ahead and try that when you guys are free.
You can't beat the original.
No.
Can't beat the original. You know what? You know the funny thing is, these flavors weren't developed by us. They were developed by the customers first. And they said, can you put this in there? Can you put that in there? My mom is very traditional. She doesn't like fusion. And then it started working out. My brother's girlfriend, she's Caucasian. She works in the store. And she has a gift. She's probably like Filipino in her past life or something. But she could roll turon like a Filipino. So she started putting blueberry in there. She started putting hazelnut. And we have pumpkin spice. We're doing one with Laker colors because go Lakers. They won.
Scott's not a fan.
Oh, you're not a fan of Lakers? What are you, Clippers, Scott?
No, I grew up in Seattle. So,
Oh, my goodness.
the Lakers were always the enemy.
Yes.
And back then we had pro basketball. There was no basketball there now. The Sonics moved to Oklahoma
They
City.
did. That was like Gary
Yeah.
Payton.
Yeah,
Dennis
sure.
Schroeder,
Sean Kemp.
Oh, that was the squad, dude.
So
Yeah.
here's a story about Scott. Before we played basketball, he told me that the Seattle Supersonics coach at the time told him that he could have played in the NBA.
Wait, were you that good?
Wait, so hold on. So knowing Scott and knowing like, I knew that was truth because why would he make that up, right? But I hadn't played with him yet.
Okay.
So he's got skills, man.
I got to see that, Scott. Play with me, my cousin.
Those were the good old days,
Wait, where'd you grow up? What high school did you go to? Or
No, I grew up in Seattle.
Seattle.
So
okay.
yeah. So I
Cloudy, huh? So you guys are always
rainy, gray.
You know, there are a lot of athletes that come from Seattle because it's cold. Yeah.
Yeah, Seattle's a good city, but yeah, the weather is like as the worst in the world. Believe me.
Everybody says that.
So Christian, obviously, I want people to come check out the store. What is the address and phone number there?
Yeah, so you can find us we're the one and only Filipino shop. I always say we're the one-stop Filipino shop in Pasadena. And we are located at 296 North Allen. Okay, so 296 North Allen, in between Allen and Corson. But you can't miss it. It's right next. It's like on the on-ramp.
Is your mom always in the store?
She does. She comes at 3, like around 3 later,
Okay.
because she watches my dad.
Have to go meet her.
Oh,
Yeah, you gotta stop by, bro. I mean, Russell's always there, but so
Yeah.
pro tip though, if you want to try the turon, you have to call ahead or you risk them selling out.
Right. Especially now that we got this thing happening, pandemic. We only make 175 to 200 now, but before on a daily 300 to 400.
Wow.
And still sell out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny because I don't mean a name drop or something like that or brag job, but apparently I didn't know a lot of celebrities ate our turon.
Oh yeah.
So people would
Name a
buy
few.
it. They want to remain
Besides you.
They want to remain anonymous. They're American celebrities, but Peter Berg. You guys know Peter Berg?
No.
You know,
I know the name.
director
but-
Peter Berg.
Yeah.
The Patriot, the movie.
Okay. Yeah.
Mark Wahlberg.
Okay.
Okay, so Peter Berg and Mark Wahlberg. So a good buddy of mine, Miko, works for them, and he gets our food. He runs this. It's a famous boxing club, and Peter Berg is the owner, and he apparently eats our turon.
Nice.
And I didn't know that.
good.
I was like, oh, cool. The Black Eyed Peas. Do you know who the Black Eyed Peas are?
Sure.
So Jimmy, he's a good friend of the store. His wife is Filipina, Jamie. Beautiful family. They're locals here in San Gabriel Valley. Yeah, might get them on a podcast one day. But yeah, they support the store. They support the culture a lot. So
Nice. Well, Christian, I'm a big fan of the store, big fan of the turon, and I appreciate you coming on and
Yeah.
sharing your story with our listeners.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you. It's very fascinating to
Guys, we are
hear your story and know about the store and meet a celebrity from the Philippines.
Celebrity, or once before celebrity. Thank you guys for having us, CHAASTE Market.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for checking out another episode of the SGV Master Key. You can find the full back catalog of the SGV Master Key at sgvmasterkey.com and wherever you get your podcasts. This show was produced and edited by Russell Mono and Victoria Allers of Kind Monster Productions. Thanks again for listening or watching. We'll see you again real soon in the next episode.
Nice mother. No, kind mother.